All right, so today I'm going to show you how to make dinner rolls. So the first thing I do is I am going to start with the yeast. So this is the type yeast that I like to buy. So it's just Red Star. It's active dry yeast. I have only used that kind of yeast, so I don't actually know much about the other types, but I like to keep it in this container stored in a dark lid. I don't know if that actually makes a difference, but it's what I do. And so I'm going to start by just putting 2 tablespoons of yeast into the mixer. And the next thing is I'm going to add the water. I add the water next just because it activates it. I don't really let it sit for very long, but I'm going to start by warming up that water. Really go for a minute in there, but usually from right here, even while I'm warming up the water, I'm going to start adding in like the sugar and different ingredients, but I will give it just a sec just so that we've got time. While I'm doing that, I'm going to take a cube, I think it's called a stick of butter, and I'm going to just unwrap it and get it ready to put in the microwave and start melting that. So unwrap it, put it in a bowl. I like to clean up as I go, so I will do that just because I like to have a clean space. So I put that yeast back in my refrigerator. All right, so while that's going, I've got the salt, I've got everything ready, and so the yeast is in there, just waiting on that water. All right, so it's 2.5 cups of water. What I do here is I put my finger in there and I kind of stir it around. If it's so hot that it burns me, it's too hot. This is a perfect temperature because it's probably the temperature of what I would like to take a bath in. So that means that's a good temperature. So while that is activating, I'm gonna melt the butter. And I will put that in the microwave for probably 30 seconds. I'm gonna add in the salt, and it calls for 2 teaspoons of salt. And then I grabbed an egg out, so I'm gonna put that egg in there. Throw that away. And I like to keep my hands clean, so that's gonna go right there. The butter, it's melted good enough. So I will grab this, put that into the mixer. And I need to show you what everything looks like at this point because you probably are curious. It hasn't been but like a minute. So if you look in there, see how it's starting to bubble? So I've got that in there. I'm going to put the sugar in, which I didn't get the sugar out. I'll put the 1/2 cup of sugar in there. And then let me just double check that I've got everything. I've got the water, the butter, yeast, salt, sugar, egg, and the last thing I need is 7 cups of all-purpose flour. So I have these buckets that I keep everything in. So I've had a large family. I've cooked for many years, and so I've always just kept the buckets in there. So I just kind of shake it off. So I'm going to count. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there's 7 cups of flour. Screw that lid on, and there we go. So let me show you what this looks like in here. And I will turn the machine on. So it's gonna flip out some flour. So I'm gonna put the lid on it. I'm just gonna let it go. And just from here, I'm just gonna let this go for 10 minutes. It's got a little flour on the side, so I kind of just bump it to make it go in. But I'm gonna let it go for 10 minutes, and when it's done, I'm gonna put it, I've got a bowl right here. So while it's mixing, I can go ahead and put the oil in it, but I'll wait till there's not so much noise, and then I can show you how that process is done. Okay, so dough has been kneading for 10 minutes. That is a hard rule that I really follow. So I just feel like that's really, really important. So now I'm just going to take a little bit of canola oil. You can probably use whatever kind of oil you want. And I'm just going to pour about, it's probably about a couple tablespoons about in the bottom of the bowl. I don't know if you can see that. It doesn't show very well, but it's just a little bit. And so I just want to roll it around in the bowl just to coat that bottom. And then I'm going to take the dough from here and I'm going to put it in there and flip it over. So I'm going to start by taking that off, which comes off super easy with this mixer. I'll just move this. Move that to the other counter so that we can see everything. And then I've got this dough here. And so I'm going to take the dough hook out. Just clean it off there. So I've got all that dough off. I don't want it to stick to my hands right now. Like I really just don't. And so it's got a little bit from doing that. So I'm just going to take my fingers and just kind of put them in that oil and then lift this up. And I'm just going to let it plop into here. And that's it. Clean. The bowl comes out pretty clean. And then from here, I just want to take that dough and I'm going to turn it over, and that's all I'm doing. So then I need to cover this with a towel, and then I'm going to let it rise for probably 30 to 40 minutes until it's double in size. I do need to run pick my son up from school, then I'm going to come back home. So however long that takes is how long I'm going to let this rise. So probably 30 to 45 minutes. And let's just say it needed to go for an hour. That's okay too. You just need to make sure it about doubles in size. And I'll see you back in about 30 minutes. Okay, so I've just gotten back from picking up my son and I am ready to show you how this is done. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the cooking spray. Well, before we get started with that, I'm going to take a peek. So see how I can see the dough has domed up a little bit? I'm going to take it off and it is beautiful. So that's a good thing. So I am going to start, I need to take my rings off because I don't really want to get dough in them. So I'm going to take cooking spray, spray my pan, and I'm going to spray my hand just a little bit, especially right here, because that's where I'm going to touch the dough. So there's lots of different ways to do this. I'm going to start by using a cooking scale. It's in grams. And I just know because I've made this recipe so many different times that I need 55 grams in each dough ball to do the perfect amount. So I don't want to like dig into the middle. I'm just going to start by taking the sides and see how I'm pinching that off. And that's probably going to be about 50 grams, but I just know that. You know what? It's 52 grams. I'll take just a tiny bit, not much, add it to it. There we go. So it doesn't take much, but I'm just kind of, see, I just push it through there. See, I'm pushing it through with my fingers through there. And I'm going to pinch it, and it makes it to where on the bottom, see how I've done that? And then I'm just going to put it down in the roll. And I'm going to do, it's going to end up being 5 by 35, I believe. So, no, 5 by 7, which is 35. So I'm taking it, pinching it, and then I'm going to weigh it. That's 58, 59. It's kind of close enough. You want to try to not let it get to 60, but see how I'm just forming by pushing it through my fingers right there. And if I wasn't showing you, I would probably have a whole row already done. So I like the oil that's on this because it keeps it from sticking. That's 58 grams. It's good enough. And I'm just forming those rolls. So I'm going to start 5 across, 7 that way. I should get 35 rolls. And here we go. 54 grams, that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. So I'm just going to start making these, and I'll give you some of the tips and tricks that I have when I'm making these rolls. And I'll try to weigh it, not, see that's 62. If I do them that large, I like them to keep them the same just so they have the same baking time. So first thing I did was I made the dough, and then I let it rise. I was gone for probably about 45 minutes before I was able to come back to this dough. And it had more than doubled in size, which is great. I live at sea level, and my house, I'm always cold. It's October right now, and my house is probably, it's still warm outside, and my house is probably about 72 degrees. So yes, the temperature of our house makes a difference, because if you want your dough to rise and your house is too cold, your dough is not going to rise very fast. So it's important to keep that temperature. Let's just say you live in a colder area, your house is cold. A lot of times what I have done is I will turn the oven on, and then I will just kind of crack open the oven. So I'll just, I don't want to touch that right now because I've got my hands kind of oily, but I'll just kind of crack the oven door open and just allow the heat. I don't want to cook or dry out, but I'll allow the heat to just kind of warm up the rolls and let that rise that way to speed it up. But a lot of times my house, just because I live in a warmer climate, my house is going to be around 72 degrees because that's where I really like it. A lot of you have asked about my KitchenAid mixer. Not my KitchenAid mixer. I have a Bosch universal mixer, and I will link it in the description on this because I'm pretty sold on the Bosch universal mixer. I've had 2 KitchenAids in the past, but I do cook a lot. And so I use my mixer quite a bit. I probably use it on average 2 to 3 times a week. So it is quite a bit. And I've noticed, like with the KitchenAid, it's a great machine too. The price point is about the same as the Bosch mixer. If you watch for the sales on the Bosch, you can get it for around, it's probably around $375-ish. Normal price is about $450, and the KitchenAid runs about that same price as well. And so I think the KitchenAid, they've done a great job marketing it, and that's why everybody's familiar with it. But the Bosch has just it's got a stronger motor. And with the 2 KitchenAids that I had, I ended up burning out the motor on them. So, and I think it has a lot to do with how much I used it. But my Bosch machine I've had for about 10 years, almost 11 years now, and it is still going super strong. So to me, that just says it's a better built machine. However, the KitchenAid, it's a great machine too. I mean, I loved it when I had mine. If I could choose, definitely going to choose the Bosch Universal over the KitchenAid. Let me see, what are some other tips and tricks? If this dough is too sticky, you could probably add, before you put it in the oil, add a little bit of flour to it. But another thing is, I mean, is it too sticky, or is it sticking to your hands? And if it's sticking to your hands, there's going to be oil around the edge of the bowl, and you could just take that oil and, just get your hands a little bit oily so that it doesn't stick that way. And let's see what else. What other kind of tips? After I'm done here, I'm going to let it rise till probably about a good 30 to 45 minutes. And then I'll put it in the oven. And these things are just beautiful. They turn out so good. And I think in all the years that I've been making these, I've had a fail with them one time, which I feel like that's pretty impressive. And that one time had everything to do with, I used old yeast. That's the only thing I could come up with, because I've made these so many times for so many years and I've never had a fail. And it was It was Thanksgiving a couple years ago, and they put me in charge of bringing the rolls because I like these rolls. They're pretty simple for me to do. And I got up Thanksgiving morning and I made the rolls, and they did not rise at all. So it was because I killed my yeast. I'm pretty careful with how I do my yeast, and I keep it in a dark, like in the back of the fridge so that it's dark, because I've heard light can make the yeast go bad quicker. Also, the water temperature of the yeast is a big deal as well. You don't want to kill the yeast, but you also want the temperature of the water to be warm enough so that it activates it. So just make sure it's not scalding hot, but also warm enough that you can, it's not just room temperature. You want to be able to feel the heat on it, but not too much. And I always put the water and the active dry yeast in the bowl first. Then I add the rest of the ingredients. I've heard salt can keep the yeast from activating. I've never ever seen that happen. So I don't even know if I believe that, just because it's never happened to me. And then let me see, what other tips and tricks do I have on this. I sprayed the pan. Trying to think what other problems we might run into. Oh, one really good one. So I have had a lot of questions of, can you freeze this dough? And so, yes, you can freeze this dough. So to freeze the dough, right now I'm forming these rolls. So I've already let them rise one time. And if you wanted to freeze them, put them on a baking sheet like this. I used parchment paper underneath it. And then before these started to rise, you don't want to let them do the second rise, at least I didn't. You would then just place this cookie sheet into the freezer, and you really don't want those touching. And then freeze them. I tried it, did it for 3 hours, and then I took them out of the freezer and I baggied them up. So I just put them into a Ziploc, like a gallon Ziploc bag. They all fit in there beautifully, and then just stored them in the freezer like that. And they worked out so good. I couldn't even tell that the dough had been frozen. So that is a way to kind of save some time if you need it. The only thing is when you take it out, I let it go for about 4 hours just to thaw, to rise. And so it took that amount of time. But I didn't think that was too bad, because if you're running errands, you're going to be gone for a couple hours, take it out. And by the time you get home, those rolls, 4 hours later, if you're gone that long, those rolls will have risen and they're perfect to go into the oven like that. Let me see, got that much dough left. So I've got, 8 rolls left to form. It's really helpful to weigh it like this, because when you don't weigh it, sometimes I will have either too much dough left over because I made the rolls too small, or I will have not enough rolls because I made some of them too big. So weighing it really helps. I've got this scale. It's a Zwilling scale. I think it's a great scale, and I do this in grams, and that works really well too. So I'm almost done with this process, which is, I feel like it takes too long, especially for the dinner rolls that you get out of it. This dough, it's got a half a cup of sugar in it, so it's a little bit sweet, but that's a good thing. It's not so sweet that you're just like a sweet roll. It's not like that. Oh, I also use this dough to make cinnamon rolls, and so good, so good. I've used this dough recipe also to make kind of like kolaches. I'll take like little sausages and I'll roll them up in it. So I'll roll the dough out thin and then just cut them into squares, and then it's like a kolache. I have a different dough recipe that I use for like breadsticks, things like that. This recipe it's because it's a little bit sweeter. I'm not going to use it for like my French bread, my pizza rolls, my breadsticks, things like that, but it's so good for dinner rolls. And then I haven't tried this, but I plan on trying this in the very near future, of taking this recipe, and I've seen so many different things like on social media where they, Pinterest, where they will take those Hawaiian rolls. And I've looked at all the ingredients on the Hawaiian rolls, and I'm not too crazy about the nutrition content and the number of ingredients in there. And so I was thinking I could just take these and slice them just like they do the Hawaiian rolls and make just like little sliders out of them. I mean, we'll do that anyway. If we have leftover for Thanksgiving with the turkey and all that, we will make sliders and they're great for lunches. So, okay. Looks like I'm going to have a little bit more dough than I'll show you in just a sec how much dough I have left over. It's not much. So I probably could have made some of these slightly, but I mean, we're talking probably 30 grams of dough, which isn't even enough to make one entire roll. I had one of my commenters say that what she'll do, or he'll do, is, so let me weigh how much we have left. You know what, it's exactly one roll. I don't have enough space on there, so I can either take parts. Let me just show you how I do this in case you're not weighing it. But I will take just a little bit of dough, add it to the center of ones that look small. But I had one of my commenters say that they take the dough, like the whole dough, before they let it rise, and they just weigh it, and then they divide it by 35 because it gets 35 rolls out of it. And like, that's actually a really great idea. I just don't think ahead enough to do that. Let me see, this one seems a little bit on the large side. It does. So I think I just wanted to show you how that's done. I'm okay with not using that dough right there. But let me get a close-up in just a sec when I get my hands clean so I can show you what these are going to look like. Hopefully you can see it. Hopefully I've got the angle right. Got a little bit of dough that I'm not using. I could disperse them throughout, but I'm okay with not doing that just because I don't want to. I just want to be done, get my hands washed, let these things rise, get them in the oven, and get dinner on the table. So give me a minute and I will show you a close-up of what this looks like. That way you can get a better idea. Beautiful rolls that I'm going to let rise for about 30 to 45 minutes, just depending on what I have go on. I'm going to then put them in the oven for 20, I think it's 22 minutes. I'll look at my recipe again, but I believe it's 22 minutes. And they just turn out amazing. So I'll come back in about 45 minutes after they've risen. Okay, so I've got the dinner rolls. They are ready to go into the 350-degree oven. They've puffed up a lot, so I'm going to put them in there for, I think it's 22 minutes. Pretty sure it's 22 minutes. And I'm not going to peek too much. Just put it in there and let it go. So I'll see you back here in 22 to 25 minutes. All right, so I think the dinner rolls are ready to come out of the oven, so let's give it a try. Or let's take a look and see if they're ready. So, I don't know if you can see in there, but these things are beautiful. So I'm going to take them out. And, oh, look at those. They are beautiful. All right, so I'm hoping you can see these. I'm going to hold it up just in case. But look at those. Amazing. This gets me really excited. So, all right, so I'm going to grab a plate, put it right there, grab some butter. Let's show you what these things look like. So I'm going to start by taking this one out of the oven. These are so hot. Love that flakiness, how it's got that right there. See how it just kind of peels? And then I got to carefully, very carefully, open those up. Oh, so good. Need to get it closer so you can see. But put some butter on there. Also got some homemade strawberry jam that I recently made that I'm going to put on these. Oh, my fingers are getting too hot. Whew, it's hot. Hot, but delicious. Get a little bit closer, and I'm going to show you how these are. Look at these. So good. But those are the dinner rolls, and they turned out so good. And I just, it's not freezer jam or anything like that. I just took strawberries and just kind of cooked them until they melted down. But I am going to just spoon a little of this on there. I'm so excited to give these a try. They're probably gonna be way too hot and I'm probably gonna burn my mouth. Oops, and I'm dripping, but that's okay. All right, here we go. These are really, really good. So please let me know in the comments. Let me know if there's something, any questions you have, anything I didn't answer, and I'll be happy to, if I don't know it, I can figure it out, but give it a try. Anyway, enjoy.